elevating employee health with holistic solutions. Please put your hands together as I welcome back to the stage Sajja Praveen Chowdary, Director and Head, Policybazaar for Business. A round of applause, please, Mr. Chowdary. Come on, ladies and gentlemen, we can put our hands together. We've had lunch, we've got some energy. Give him a warm welcome.
Yes. Please. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. What we would I understand this is a post-lunch session, so we'll not kind of bore you with what we are and, how we are good at and, kind of marketing our solutions. But what we wanted to quickly kind of do today is kind of showcase how probably some of things are different from what we do in the market or what are available in the market, and how our solutions are slightly forward-thinking compared to where the rest of the market is, and how probably these can help some of these things that we are discussing today here in the sessions, kind of. So before we kind of get to the solutions, kind of a quick couple of things about ourselves. So we are Policybazaar, India's largest insurance broker with about 20,000 crores of annual run rate on premium. Primarily being driven from the retail business that we did, or we've been there for about 15 years. And a small timeline about us: we're about listed in 2021, and that's when we started our large corporate business, which we call as Policybazaar for Business. Prior to that, primarily we did corporate business, but most of it was for startups and or the close-knit circle kind of thing. 2021 is when we started the large corporate business, primarily with PB for Business being there. And in 2024 is when we got the reinsurance license as well from the regulator, which means we'll be able to do much larger non-employee benefit segments as well. At the same time, obviously coming in late into the segment, there's also a typical segment on the non-employee benefit side, which is not probably today relevant, but then there's also technicality involved there. That's where, we have a lot of industry veterans who are on our board as well as on our advisory board, who work with us day in, day out to kind of help us with some solutions or wherever things get stuck. And again, one other thing, which we are very proud of is, it's rather than saying, how much business that we do, it's more about the numbers that you see in circles is, the number of years a particular client has been with us. So we take a lot of pride in saying that, clients love to continue with us, which means I'm sure there's a lot of stickiness in terms of the solutions that we provide or integrated solutions that we provide to clients in terms of corporate benefits. And on the right side, which you see as one, is what shows, we're also rapidly expanding at the same time with more and more new brands and well-known brands coming on board. So what we do differently from what the market is, or what we started with about roughly 3 years back, is, there've been, while there's been a lot of focus on BAU, which is the regular health insurance or the regular insurance piece itself, and then there's wellness, which has been where some of the companies would be spending, but those have been put in different buckets, kind of. That's where we come up with an integrated wellness into the same platform, where you have everything in a single place, where it's for, say, a HR team or the policy administration team or for the employee per se. At the same time, the same platform, which is being available to, and if I were to, kind of go back to a slide back, you'd see that there's a wide range of organizations that you'd see. A bank, which would have a lot of, officer level people being there, or at the same time, say, some of the companies which would have a lot of delivery force, like Delivery has a lot of on-ground delivery staff, or some of the other organizations like Chowdary Aviation, which is on-ground people working in the airport, a lot of, so-called blue-collared or the lower segment, who might not be really comfortable with app as such. But how do we kind of bring a solution which is kind of integrated and being able to, or everyone in the segment is able to utilize, kind of, where it's an app for those who can utilize it, or whether can we, kind of integrate the same solutions through a WhatsApp bot for someone who would, not be able to utilize an app, kind of. Where it's in terms of, having an e-card, because one of the problems that we saw at early was, while again, the one which you discussed in the morning is, while e-card is a very simple thing for your health insurance, kind of, but that's one thing which the employee also realizes when they reach a hospital, where is my e-card, kind of, and then everyone starts to figure out with the TPA or the SPOC and so on and so forth. Can the employee get it on the WhatsApp itself? Or can the employee upload the bills on WhatsApp itself? Or can the employee get a doctor call through WhatsApp itself? Those who cannot kind of really use app or, navigate through the entire thing. And at the same time, going into the depth of the solutions in terms of, rather than saying it's a, only a doctor on call or a telehealth, just to give an example of, right? I'm leaving outside the brokers or others, partners who might not even give doctor on call another facilities. But even those who have, is it a just to differentiate between someone who does today as a HR or a policy administration person who does something for the sake of being there or namesake versus actually meaning wellness for the employees. Someone who does a doctor on call with, say, a partner who has a call center doctor who are not actually practicing doctors, versus a doctor who's actually practicing on the ground, versus not only a GP but a specialist also available who's a cardiologist or and so on and so forth. You're having about 16 specializations where the doctors being available who can be from a Fortis or a Medanta or a Apollo who are actually practicing, which means that also gives a lot of comfort to employees to actually utilize it rather than just being there as namesake of it kind of, right? And at the same time, not only about doctors, it's about psychologists or a legal advisory also being available to them at the fingertips kind of, and everything being integrated along with the health insurance in a single platform, which makes it more engaging and available at the fingertips kind of. And that's where we've seen a lot of engagement coming up from, because you're not trying to do it in silos. There's a separate app for wellness, there's a separate thing for insurance, and there's a separate one for, say, a psychologist session, but everything combined to a single platform, and where, and then you do a lot of other wellness activities in terms of using the same app, which is, in some of the places we've been able to do stepathon and other stuff as well. That's where the entire engagement starts from, where we see engagement as large as about 70 to 80% of employees using or utilizing the app and coming back to it and utilizing some of the features, which otherwise, normally would see about roughly 10-20% of employees doing. And certain other things which we do, which are not today done across the board or which are done on basis of escalation. For example, one of the things is unmatched claims experience. One of the pain points that the benefits team gets is at any point of time is on a, say, escalation basis is, some amount got deducted in my claim and, how do I get it? Or there's no justified reason that's coming up. So what happens at our end is we have in-house medicos whose job is to kind of ensure there's a benchmark number for each and every client. Let's assume you don't have any deductibles in your policy, then probably 80% is your payout ratio. Then 75% is a benchmark for your company. Then any claim where the payout ratio is less than 75% has to be manually eyeballed by our doctor. Or any claim that gets rejected has to be manually eyeballed by our doctor. Now, let's assume there's a deductible of 10%, then probably for you it will be 70% or 65% is the benchmark kind of. Now, why is it important? Isn't it a TPS job? It's a TPS job, but then, looking at how the industry is, there's a lot of churn that also happens at the executive level in the TPA industry, and that's the reason why nothing is perfect to dot, right? That's where this process comes in kind of, where obviously it's human to err in a process where there's a lot of churn that's happening. And that's where this process comes in, where without any kind of escalation, obviously, the employee can reach out with an escalation saying, yesterday only you got, discharged from the hospital and 10,000 extra was deducted and all. But then it need not require escalation from a HR or the employee or anyone. It's something which we do proactively. And it's just, you can look at the numbers probably, in about half of the year, which is, this is about roughly 3 quarters old process that for us. And probably in OND and JFM, which is about 6 months of last year, we got about 2.35 crore worth of amount extra paid out to employees without anyone's intervention. Obviously, some of them would have also escalated, but then there's something which, by intervening, this is the number of error that we are speaking about. If you leave it alone, probably, with escalations, probably about 50 lakh would have got paid. 50 lakh versus 2.35 crore is what we're referring to. And again, not without any additional costs, without anyone escalating or asking for it and so on and so forth. And then, obviously, our retail presence which I spoke about earlier helps us kind of bring this onto the corporate side as well, which none of the other partners would be able to provide kind of. It's basically like, for example, some employees' parents are kind of either visiting Varanasi or say some other location. And let's assume you're not a firm which is an FMCG firm, which has a lot of, off-ground location of people in every part of the country. And someone falls ill and they get hospitalized and there's no one whom really there. There's 99% chance that one of our employee would be there in that location, who would be able to go to the hospital, spend time till the time someone reaches there for the next 6-7 hours and take care of things. Again, we can say how many instances would happen. Probably since the time we launched this, it's in 3 digits. 3 digits is what I would call it. But then insurance is also about it, right? Not that everyone gets hospitalized every day, every year kind of, but we still do take it. Similarly, this is one of the things which we're able to extend beyond what a regular insurance is. And, again, within the same thing. Again, everything integrated within the same package kind of. This is the other thing which we do for a lot of organizations today is there are scenarios where you face in terms of either the sum insured gets exhausted, which means let's say you're providing a 5 lakh rupee cover to an employee or a 3 lakh cover to an employee. The cover gets exhausted because of some major ailment that's happened with family member. Or the second thing is, while we speak about cashless everywhere is one of the things which a lot of you would understand from recent news and all, but then still there are a lot of hospitals which still don't give you cashless because they're not okay to come at the rates that insurers would want or the insurance industry would want. These scenarios where you would kind of get into a tough situation where the employee would need immediate financial help. And one of the things that we recently did a study on claims, which was just released about 2-3 days back on the health insurances, at least I think 60% of the people who go into reimbursement claims do take some kind of financial help from someone or the other. And they might not be always be happy to kind of do that. So that's one part where we think, where let's assume the employee gets their sum insured exhausted, or let's assume cashless is not happening and they're in need of something, where we're able to kind of get an easy financing done without too much of documentation, without too much of worrying about CIBIL and few other stuff through our NBFC partners. Again, being a large part of PB FinTech, being able to work with multiple finance companies from Policybazaar side, and so on and so forth. We've been able to arrange this for a lot of our clients. Again, as the same thing, as singular package. And when you're speaking about singular package or a singular thing, you're referring to, how many things would be there for employees to be engaged about and to kind of come back to the same platform. Last, which we are, kind of probably in the process of doing a pilot of, and one interesting thing, again, this is a very well known to the people who are managing benefits in organizations or insurance in organizations from the HR teams. At the same time, which came out as part of our, again, the entire claim study that we did as well. And most of the topic, most times discussed, or the mostly discussed topic. The employee says, my discharge process took about 7-8 hours. What are you speaking about 1-2 hours? Because always, or the customer says that. And most of us would have, generally seen that. The reason is, we start our timer from the point the doctor comes and tells us, okay, you're good to go today. The doctor comes at 8 o'clock in the morning and says, you're good to go today, and we start our timer. The problem is the insurance approval comes at about 4 o'clock or 2 o'clock, and we say, why it takes 6 to 8 hours? The issue is, while again, there have been recent push by IIDA for insurance companies saying you should do in 2 hours and all. Unfortunately, what a lot of unregulated spaces with the hospitals on the other side, that the doctor comes on the rounds in the morning, comes and says, okay, you're good to be discharged, then goes on rounds, the nurse or the attendant goes on rounds, then after an hour or 2 hours come back, collects all the files, then there's a reconciliation that happens between accounts, finance, billing, and then there's sent to the internal TPA team within the hospital, which itself takes about 4 to 5 hours. This is a realistic problem that anyone and everyone who would have got hospitalized would have seen. And then it goes to the TPA or the insurer. That's where the 2-hour TAT starts from for insurance company, because that's when they've got the documents for. An average of 60 minutes is what they take to approve the claim. So in reality, what is there with the insurance company or TPA is about, say that 60 minutes or 2 hours of time to approve, versus what the employee or the customer today sees in the market is about 6 hours. And that's where a lot of this issue comes up from, or discontent comes from. Compared to this, we were kind of comparing this to, say, my sister is in America and US, and they had some small hospitalization, and we were just normally checking, is everything fine, is insurance fine? The way the process would work, again, I'm not saying that US is great or anything, but just a comparison of how things work, is basically there the employee walks out, or the patient walks out by just signing few documents. There's no really settlement that happens at that point of time. The insurance papers are there, and things are taken care of, then you sign. Probably, they said after 2 or 3 months is when you get the bill, finally to settle down. Probably because, all the systems are connected and so on and so forth. While the systems are disjointed here, what we came out with is, at least in the employee side of it, or the corporate insurance side, probably there's a chance to connect these and figure out a solution. And that's what we're piloting right now, is instead of, kind of probably saying the file reconciliation that takes care at the hospital at the later stage, can we move it to step 1? This is one thing which we're launching with one of TPA and few corporates kind of, where we say that, for a particular set of hospitals, the top hospital where there's a major utilization kind of, where we've been able to agree to a certain extent, that the reconciliation at least will happen 1-2 days prior to discharge, or, kind of there'll be a regular reconciliation that would happen, which means the moment the doctor says at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock in the morning that you're good to go, all that the person has to do is tell the SPOC of the TPO or us at Policybazaar for Business that, the doctor said I'm good to go. And then probably in 15 minutes, you have the TPA approval available at the hospital. So this is one major transformation that we're seeing. And, this is one thing, again, we're piloting right now with a couple of our partners. And, we would like to be at the forefront in bringing such solutions. And we look forward. Probably this is one of the things that we assume, or we think at this point of time can be a changing thing for the entire industry. where, a large pain point where you say, 8 hours spending in the hospital after the doctor saying discharge, versus say you being able to move or walk out of the hospital, say, or to get the approval in 15 minutes and walk out of the hospital in, say, 20, 25 minutes. A long shot for some people who might see, but, if it's possible in some part of the world, again, with some push and pull and probably with some bit of investment, we think that we can do it, and that's where we're moving towards. So that's about broadly about how we do things differently or what we are looking at moving forward with our clients. And any questions, we're happy to take. And we also have our colleagues at the booth outside, very happy to interact and see if there are opportunities to partner as well. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks a lot. So probably, we look forward to, in case if there's anyone who would want to interact at our booth. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Mr. Chowdary.